Welcome to Tales from the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Mick West. My guest today wants to remain anonymous, so I'm going to refer to him as Paul, not his real name. I'm also going to obscure the video of him in the YouTube version, and I'm going to disguise his voice a little bit. Now, Paul used to be a big promoter of the Planet X conspiracy theory. This theory was basically that there was some kind of extra planet or a brown dwarf star or something orbiting the sun, and the government was kind of trying to hide this up because it's a impending apocalypse. And people kept posting lots of videos on YouTube, including Paul, of basically things like lens flare and just spots around the sun that were just perfectly normal things, but were being misinterpreted as being this planet that was going to bring about the end of the world. Paul ended up working with a couple of other people who he talks about in this podcast, but eventually he figured out that it was all nonsense. He worked with a debunker called Dazza the Cameraman, and Dazza kind of convinced him that this was not actually happening. So this podcast is where Paul will tell his story and explain how he got into it, how he got out of it, and what he's been doing since, and what happened. One thing he talks about in the podcast is doxing. Doxing is the practice of publishing personal documents and photographs of people on the internet as a form of harassment and intimidation, and a way of dissuading people from doing things on the internet. And Paul was the subject of doxing. Okay, let's hear from Paul. So, Paul, welcome to Tales from the Rabbit Hole. You contacted me on Twitter, and first of all, I really appreciate you doing this. Why don't you just start out by telling people why you contacted me and, kind of what your story is?
Sure. I've always kind of been a conspiracy buff. I often would tell folks that I would check out books on UFOs and aliens around 5, 6. Anyway, so I noticed that. So since I'm a UFO guy, I kind of keep an eye on UFO stuff, and I noticed your work on the Tic Tac UFO. And I'm like, this guy's a friggin' genius. He just has such a solid debunking frame of mind that I haven't seen. I just haven't seen or experienced. I have experienced some of the folks on YouTube that have helped me, and I appreciate their efforts tremendously. But this kind of was a new level for me, because the UFO topic, I feel there's some substance to it. There's something there. Right. And I don't think we can identify everything, and we don't have full control of the entire airspace. Yeah. So, that's why I reached out to you, saw how good you were, and I figured that you could tell my story.
All right. And so you mentioned that you were very into the whole Planet X thing.
Yes.
Some time ago. Can you tell me kind of how you first started getting into that aspect of things?
Roughly December of 2013, I was separated from my ex-wife, and I had a serious liver issue, hepatitis C. And at that time, I had it for about 23 years. I figured I was going to die from it. I never thought that there would be a cure. So I'm like, whatever. I was in a bad state of mind, and I guess that's the only thing I can attribute it to, because I've really tried to figure out where all of this started for me. So I'm already conspiracy buff, and then I'm going through some bad times. I go to YouTube to look for answers, and I don't know why I did, but I did, and I came across the Planet X topic. Well, I'm also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so I have some interesting religious views. So it's a real interesting culmination of ideas and thoughts, feelings, etc., that got me to the point that I started looking at YouTube. And the Planet X topic, it just took off for me. It seemed to resonate something with me. I didn't understand anything about lens flares, anything about astronomy, astrophysics, etc. And it caught my eye, and I kind of ran with it. I think there's a term, it's called apophenia, where you have like random events and ideas that you kind of put together to mean something. I don't have a very good explanation for that.
No, that's good. It's like basically finding patterns in things, like it's going to be human trait.
So I'm seeing the patterns, right? And I'm a sucker. So I'm hooked, like a drug, literally. Right. And I was so interested to see, what is this thing by the sun? And I ran with it. I started making YouTube videos, and I got popular. And it just kind of took off into some narcissistic, egoistic, fear porn, psychological, I don't know what else to call it, man. Some kind of an addiction. I mean, it was everything I said. It just was wrapped into one. I was kind of a mind fuck. I don't know how else to say it. Sorry for swearing. I just was captured and enthralled in this topic. So I did everything I could to try to defend it, never bothering to look at what people were trying to say, because I just immediately blocked comments. I disabled them. I wouldn't respond to any YouTube messages. I would block people in email. And if anyone made video responses, I would ignore them.
Right.
So I just kind of kept going beeline to this topic. Everyone's a troll. Everyone's a government agent. The government's lying to us. There's an object by the sun, and we're all going to die. And Jesus is coming. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I was full bore. Yeah. Here we go. Then I was approached by a theoretical particle physicist, Claudia. I don't like saying people's full names, but you can edit that out later if you need to. I'm certain they're going to find this video and look to strike it. She approached me, I believe it's August 16th, 2016. And I had made one of my goofy Planet X videos, which was just a random array of subscribers sending me pictures of, at the time I didn't know, known planetary anomalies, we'll say, and just known astronomical things you should learn in school, and lens flares and cool looking sky formations. That's really all it was. I put it together and said, it's Planet X.
Okay.
So I put out a clip of the ISS feed that just has a weird lens on it. And she came to me and said, there's no way that's the sun. It's a containment system. It's a sun simulator. And I'm like, holy shit, this lady's a real theoretical particle physicist. So I'm like, it's a physicist. This is real. Oh no, right? What are we going to do? At the time, she was working anonymously with a channel, WSO, and she was putting out her thoughts in the form of a kind of a physicist thoughts type of white paper that she would put out, right? They weren't peer-reviewed documents. They were just little white papers. So she came and approached me. We started a friendship. I started exclusively putting out her material, which some of the stuff you just can't find on YouTube anymore. Most of it I've deleted, purged, or struck the videos where I could. But there is still some videos where you can see me putting together a physicist's thoughts, which is, it's not her. I would never say her name. I would never release her name, and I would never release her documents. And it was just a presentation for the day about Planet X. So I would put out a physicist's thoughts presentation and just read it on the screen and put out a YouTube video. Well, needless to say, things started getting heated for the debunkers. And at the time, I didn't know and didn't want to know the debunkers. That's when things started to get a little bit crazy. We worked together for a couple of months, and I dated a girl in Florida. I went and saved her life literally from Hurricane Matthew, and that was around October 6th, 2016, around that date. We went to Georgia with her dogs. I'm all wrapped up into Planet X, and the lady, and she tells me, look, this physicist that you're working with, something's not right.
Right.
That's it. Okay. And at the time, the girl that I was dating believed in her own nonsense. So I stopped doing my channel. I deleted it. I can't resist. I make another channel. I call it A Physicist's Thoughts. I keep working with this physicist. Around that time, I met a man, Scott, and this is where things start to get really bad. He was really interested in my relationship with this lady. Now, some of what I'm going to say, I think, is speculation, but if you were in my shoes, you would see that he knew she had a psychological issue, and he wanted to use it to his advantage for money. I knew that. I knew that's what this dude was coming to me for, because at the time I wasn't totally gone with the topic. I knew something wasn't right, because folks were putting out things on YouTube, questioning me, directly asking me, and I would try to delete it and block it. All right, so we start working together, the physicist and I, and she's actually only a lecturer at the university. I didn't know. Well, we all three start working together. I don't know exactly what happened now. Oh, okay. It's a big deal. Certain folks wanted to find out her name, and I was doing everything I could to keep it anonymous. I didn't want her to get in trouble because she was at a university. Her name was embedded in a PDF, and WSO had released her documents, which we didn't want to do. And someone found her name. And from that, folks found her name, went to the university, and complained. Ultimately, she was censured for bringing disrepute to the university.
When was this approximately?
This is May of 2017.
Okay. Because if you search the internet now for her name, like you get lots of articles about.
Oh, you're going to find all kinds of stuff. Yes, yeah. And he has done everything possible to hide any evidence of me, and a good like debunking what really took place, and any kind of documents of any kind, because of folks, YouTube's community guidelines. You can't just release people's documents and there you go.
So when you say you were working together with them, does that mean you were just basically working together on making YouTube videos, or was there something more than that?
That's right. Yeah, we just kind of started putting out the presentations, and then started doing a hangout, the three of us, on a live stream on YouTube.
Okay.
And then it just kind of was those two, and I started kind of backing away. And because she was censured for bringing disrepute to the university, she was going to go into disciplinary whatever, had to talk to a lawyer, and they also did a medical exam on her, a mental health evaluation, and determined at the time that she had PTSD. Now, that probably predated this whole YouTube nonsense, because we had folks, the ugly part of YouTube and social media, doxing her, myself, and others in an attempt to, it was kind of going both ways, right? For folks to have their attention to the fact that she, was a charlatan, wasn't quite right, and was putting out nonsense. And I was helping. Well, I kept continuing backing this person until this disrepute thing happened, the censurer, and her mental health evaluation, which is something very personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, definitely.
I was involved in the entire process, and I felt bad. I didn't want her name being out there. I never wanted that to happen. So this thing kind of exploded in my face. Well, Scott was trying to get her here to the United States as his wife. I'm certain under a 90-day fiance visa.
Wow.
Without my knowledge. And that was around July 6th, 2017. And I friggin' lost it. I'm like, this is all bullshit. this is all lies. You guys, this is nonsense. And I don't know what it did to me, but it was the lies. I finally got tired of pushing the lies because months and months and months from 2016, I was apprised of folks trying to let me know, these are just lens flares. This is real stuff that isn't nonsense. Like, we can vet this. What are you doing?
Can be explained.
And they just kept ignoring the common sense. They kept ignoring the folks' honest attempt just to debunk and help me understand what I was looking at and not mislead people. So I lost it. I was like, this is all BS. And I started speaking out about these two. Well, things escalated. He threatened me, Scott, with physical violence and others. I had to go to the FBI on April 11th of 2018. Roughly June of 2018, Claudia put out a video that the FBI had detained Scott. From my understanding, well, the FBI, they're not going to tell you anything. I met with them for an hour and a half with my dad to make sure I didn't say anything stupid. So these guys are the real deal. I gave them a stack of paper of this guy's threats to myself and others. It looks like they took it serious because he was on an open bench warrant. Roughly in June until now, he was put in prison, re-paroled, put on an electronic monitoring device, and I'm certain he's on house arrest. I have had a very difficult time dealing with their harassment towards me because now I am a government agent, and they have books that say on Amazon is a special agent, secret agent, government agent troll. Yeah. So they kind of flipped it on me, right? And I know there's a whole bunch of stuff I didn't cover in that, but that's kind of where we're at today. So I'm upset. I want people to know that this absolutely destroyed my life and my family. And folks got a hold of my employer. They made false claims to my employer. At the time, my ex-employer, I'm a contractor now, it's different. And I was investigated for a month. Wow. For something I didn't do. So that was kind of why I was letting you know. I don't want folks knowing where I work and live, etc. Because Scott and Claudia, namely Scott, will continue to dox, bully, threaten, and intimidate using YouTube's community guidelines and then getting his followers basically to talk shit about you. Well, certain people deal with it very well. I don't deal with that very well. So it's been really hard for me to know how to respond and how to move on. And I guess that's where I'm at now. I'm moving, leaving. I don't want to make videos about these people. However, I do want folks to know. I do want them to know. And I don't think it should come from me. My story is probably atypical since not very many folks worked with her directly and know her well. I spent literally hundreds of hours on Hangouts with her and him. And honestly, it's just a fear porn for profit scheme. He knows that she's not totally healthy and needs help, and he's exploiting that. So that's kind of where my story went.
Interesting. So you're saying that she actually believes in it? She actually thinks that there's something going on?
It's both. She does believe something's going on, but at the same time, when you see her, wow, gosh, that's a tough one, man. I really do think, yes, that she believes, but there is some credibility of her understanding the truth there, and so she does manipulate a little bit. We'll say a lot, according to some folks, but I would say, yeah, there's a real core belief there, yes.
So how does she address the debunkers? Like when a debunker comes and explains that this particular thing is obviously a lens flare and then demonstrates that it's a lens flare, does she ever directly address things like that?
Not typically. The comments will be deleted and folks will be grouped into the "you're a government troll" category. You're jealous. We have jobs. This isn't for jobs. or money. We're trying to save people's lives, so don't listen to the fear mongers that are delusional. So there's never a straightforward technical or scientific answer that is ever provided. If it's too much, the comments deleted.
And this is something that you were involved in doing as well, like back before you kind of flipped. So you would just kind of automatically do this type of thing, like delete comments and ignore things.
Yes, I was really good at ignoring.
So at the time, though, you believed that there was an actual Planet X in the solar system, and there was something there, and NASA was hiding it, and there was all this sun simulators and things like that.
Yeah, all of it. Yes, NASA's a lie. It's meant to hide the true depth, width, height, and breadth of space.
Wow.
I mean, I had it memorized, man. And so folks like you, it's so refreshing because you have this complete, correct, as far as I'm concerned, point of view, or more structured and fundamentally wholesome view of reality.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
Well, no, for real. Like, there's a way that you break things down just into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's so a matter of fact, right? And there's not a lot to conjecture with your work because you can back it up like that. Mm-hmm. With these other folks, it's totally the opposite. Block, delete, get away from it, don't even answer, oh, you're a troll, whatever. So your view and how you manipulate the data in a debunking fashion absolutely has been cool.
Yeah, it's all about, I think, trying to communicate really how to explain things to people, because often I think scientists will understand things, but they're not always very good at explaining things, and just kind of getting to the root misunderstandings of people is really key. So, like, when you say you kind of lost it and you kind of flipped, was it like just this sudden realization that it was all nonsense, or were there like specific things that you realized that this doesn't make sense? Was it more gradual?
So I saw a few videos from Daza the cameraman.
All right, good guy.
On YouTube. I love Daza. We talk often. There's something about him and how he debunks that it was really difficult for me to look away. Mm-hmm. And in my heart and in my mind, I'm like, this is what's going on. It's what he's saying. I'm like, dude, no, I don't want to deal with it now. And so I kept defending it. I'm like, it's all bullshit. Oh no. What do I do? So it was working on me for months. And then at the time that they basically lied about, her coming to the country, which really isn't a big deal. That's their personal thing. I was so into the nonsense that I immediately, and I'm glad, I snapped. I just was like, this is all lies. Why am I doing this? And it capitulated at that moment when she moved here.
Wow. So it kind of built up with you, like, having essentially Daza explain things to you. Daza the cameraman, he's an Australian debunker, isn't he? As I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. And he does a lot of stuff with Flat Earth as well, I think.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Did you ever get any overlap in your community with the Planet X and Flat Earth? Because it seems like they wouldn't really be compatible. But
yes,
same type of people.
A little bit of stuff there. Not much. I see a lot of overlap with the Sun Simulator and Planet X. And just a little bit of the Flat Earth. But it seems more polarized, and it seemed like the folks that were more technical in debunking were on the Flat Earth side, meaning they would actually adhere to some of the principles of debate and would actually sound a little bit more wordy and cool sounding, scientific sounding, a little bit more sharp sounding. I'm not trying to belittle the community, but the similarities are almost identical between both. It just seemed like I would get a better debunking conversation either way from the Flat Earth folks.
So when you were deep into Planet X, what was your opinion of the Flat Earthers?
I had a hard time with that because I'm like, well, if the Earth's friggin' flat, how is there a Nibiru? And then God must have made it flat because the Bible says it, right? And I'm like, okay, now we're in a dome and there's a firmament and there's water over us. Oh, and they're luminaries, so it must be, and when it comes close, then we have problems because we're in the firmament or the encapsulated something. Yeah, I think that's about as good as I could get with that.
So you actually kind of tried to reconcile the two different belief systems for yourself to see if you could bring it all in together.
Sure, and I keep trying, roughly every once in a while, right? Because some of this stuff really lingers with you. For example, there was a GIF on Twitter of the Earth during this last eclipse, and you can see the eclipse's cool little shadow. It was like a swirly in a coffee. It was like, and I'm like, that was an eclipse on a ball, man. Come on, we're not on a flat thing.
Right.
And it was cool to see that. I couldn't have ever even felt that way, or even mentally, I couldn't think that way. So to see actually how we really live and what we live in is far more assuring. It was not assuring in the flat Earth, firmament, Nibiru craziness. Yeah.
So I was really interested when you mentioned like your background, like you grew up with the UFOs, and then you also mentioned that you were in, still are in, I guess, the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints. Yes, how do you think the church, and the teachings of the church, kind of affected you at all in terms of how you became this Planet X person?
The whole thing about the last days, the second coming of Christ, and those teachings, it was like, we should be able to see something cool, before he comes, right? Things are going to get crazy. Look at this. It was just, it fit the pattern. Like, we're told, here that everything would be revealed before Christ came, and it's all coming to pass, and it's on YouTube.
Is there a lot of people within the Mormon Church who think that, like, the apocalypse, the end times are very near? Is that part of the church's teachings now, or is it just kind of an offshoot?
Well, if you were, and of course I'm not a spokesman for the church, but if you were to watch the Worldwide General Conference from the 12 apostles and from the prophet and his two counselors, they pretty much all infer that, and do say, we're in the last days, and we just need to buck up because things are going to continue to ramp up.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
But it's not in a fearmonger way.
No, it's like getting ready.
Right? Yeah. Just be prepared. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah. It's like you have the year's worth of food in your house and things like that.
Certainly, if you have your food storage and if you're spiritually ready, you should be far more prepared than most.
But then that, I think, maybe gives kind of an expectation of there is something about to happen, and maybe you start looking for those things to happen.
Yeah, so it was easy to justify anything as it's the last days. We'll just lump it into that, right? Oh, he's coming. Yeah, so the religious part, I think, makes things... And if you get into the Planet X and the Flat Earth, then you see the folks that are religious zealots. It gets extremely concerning and weird.
Yeah, are there people who try to do things to hurry up the apocalypse? I know, like, within some Christian things, there are people who think that if we go to war with Israel, then that would make the second coming come quicker.
Sure.
Are there things like that in Mormonism?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, nothing like that.
Right, okay. Well, that's good.
Certain things have to happen, but I don't think we can make them happen.
So you said you were into conspiracy theories before as well, before Planet X. What were some of the things that you were really spending time on back then, before Planet X? Bigfoot. Oh.
Yeah, I really like Bigfoot. And the work from Todd Standing. He's got some pretty interesting pictures, and if they are dummies or masks, wow, they're pretty good. But hey, I don't know. I've learned from this Planet X thing that it's easy to be fooled.
Yeah.
So he could absolutely be a charlatan, and others as well, furthering a charlatan agenda. So, but yeah, mostly my ones were Bigfoot, UFOs, and Planet X.
So, I mean, like, Bigfoot, I wouldn't really call a conspiracy theory. It's more just kind of, I mean, it's not like the government is covering up Bigfoot.
Well, yeah, in some of the circles they would say that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I just kind of throw it in there because it's something that I can't prove one way or the other. So
it's like, this type of thing that would be classed as unexplained, and you see things on the Discovery Channel about it. Yeah, who knows what's going on? But UFOs, I suppose, is more of a conspiracy theory because people do think the government is covering up UFOs. Sure. What do you think of the most recent UFO stuff? The stuff I've been talking about, the gimbal and Tic Tac.
Yeah. How dumb are these guys going to feel that they were recording another, jet or a missile, a few miles up? You know what I mean? That was my first impression. Is like, gosh, you got to feel really stupid if we debunked it that quick. But the way you debunked it, how you moved it, like the top half of the video, kind of how you moved it, how it moved, I liked how you edited it that way. That was a really good way of bringing out what you were trying to say. But yeah, it might be very explainable.
It's not for sure, but obviously I'm thinking that this does seem to be something. This does look like it's a distant plane, and the rotation thing. This is where the rotation of the craft is probably just a rotation of the glare, and you can kind of see the lights and the whole scene kind of move at the same thing as the camera rotates. I've had a hard time explaining that to people. So what about like other conspiracy theories, like chemtrails? Like, do you ever get into that?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. So, do you know who Dane Wigington is?
Oh yeah, I know him very well. I've talked to him a few times as well.
So I offered my technical services to Dan a few times for free, and I have his phone number. I've talked to him quite a few times. I supported him in his work right after, about 2013, 14, 15, into 16. I really followed him on Facebook. No joke, I really have his phone number. I've talked to him quite a few times. He's a good dude.
Oh yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah. I can't believe he has such a huge property here in Shasta. Yeah, I offered some of my technical services. I feel bad I wasn't able to. He had asked me for some real secure kind of stuff that I was like, I don't know what to tell you, buddy.
He was thinking people were spying on him.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah.
So Dane Wigington, obviously the big chemtrail guy. What do you think of chemtrails now? The whole chemtrail theory. You still think there's something to it?
I'm certain there's the there's some kind of a
stratospheric aerosol injection.
Yeah, there you go. I know that they're doing something like that, right? Isn't it to keep the planet cool?
Well,
keep the sun out.
That's the theory. No, they don't think they're actually doing it. I don't think they're actually doing it yet. It's something that they might do in the future, but it's something that they've researched. The possibility of spraying things from planes.
So, see how bad I am. I thought that was actually something that was really happening, but I haven't. Ever since I let go of the Planet X thing, I let go of everything.
Wow.
Including the chemtrails.
So, did you just kind of lose your enthusiasm for this type of thing?
Yes.
It seems like a bit of a deflation in a way when you realized that there wasn't anything to it.
I was able to apply the same type of logic for Planet X to other theories.
Right.
And for the UFO thing, I just kind of let it go for a while and haven't really dealt with it until I saw some of your work. And I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
And I really felt like how you had done with the FLIR, the little ghost image or whatever around that's typical of a FLIR camera on the object. Just different stuff like that. I'm like, nobody has said anything.
Yeah.
Come on, you guys. I'm like, wow, we could debunk this too all day long. So, it deflated my interest in everything, and I just had to step away.
Yeah, that thing was where it looked like it was glowing like cold, and then people were saying that the UFO was creating its own anti-gravity field, and so the air inside would be cold because it's anti-gravity, which cools things down. When really it was just
because of the flare camera, right?
Yeah, it was just the sharpening in the camera that increased the contrast around the edges of things, which is where you get glows. And I showed some videos of like a little girl dancing, and she was glowing, and it was the exact same thing. And obviously, the little girl didn't have an anti-gravity field. But people had actually mentioned that before, and part of the challenge was actually just getting the information out there to people. Like, people have written about it, like, over a year ago on my site, and I'd mentioned it on my site.
Well, I was just going to say, see how easy it is for me, still, and I'm still kind of working through. It's a way of thinking where you hold on to stuff. Like, it's a very simple statement, like, "Oh, nobody wrote anything about that." Well, I've had to learn that you can't just make flagrant statements like that without actually doing the research. So I'm glad that you said that. So yeah, I'm still learning. I'm not afraid to admit it. Yeah, it's just the whole conspiracy thing. It's easy to make it a religion for yourself. Well, we'll say alternative theories and whatever. I just call it. Lump it into conspiracy theories, but I just know that it has a real traumatic psychological effect on people, as it has affected me. So, just in a very negative fashion.
Right, but what is that psychological effect, though? Is it kind of a depression or something like that, or is it just?
Yeah, sure, just depressed, feeling stupid. Right, just kind of like, how was I so gullible? And literally is like a drug.
All right,
and you go through this emotional stimulant or stimulus every time you get into a new theory or versions of the theory or escalations regarding the topic on social media, and it becomes kind of an addictive cycle. And when you don't have that and you use that to express yourself and kind of lean on it for just about everything because you were having other issues in your life, I guess there's a depression, there's a loneliness, there's something missing. And then you start thinking about it, and I think that's more the depression and how stupid you feel for being gullible and participating in so much nonsense, and then having yourself, you literally changed your mind on things in a negative aspect. So I think that's the psychological trauma, the conspiracy theory type of stuff you can get into.
Yeah. Now that's interesting though. Like you say, those things happen to you though after you kind of realize that it was nonsense. So it's almost like there's this huge disincentive to stop believing because you kind of see this almost darkness on the other side and all this uncertainty. Like when you're in there, that you've got all these theories that you believe in, which are great. But then you lose it all. It's like losing your religion. It's like someone proving to you that God isn't real or something like that.
Sure.
So, but
that's a good way to say it.
Were there negative psychological effects while you were believing it?
Oh, of course, yeah, because folks were trying to call me out, and I couldn't handle it. And the way they were trying to call me out, some folks were very positive, others were negative. Very, very negative, physical threats, etc. And it was hard to deal with.
These were like debunker type people who were arguing with you on the internet?
Yeah, so it seems like there are three categories of folks: the ones that believe, the debunkers, and then the shit stirrers, the people that just have nothing else better to do but get under your skin. And I had a real hard time with that category because they had the debunk in them, right? Because they knew it was BS, but they didn't like me. I guess that's the way. That's probably the best way to explain it. They didn't like how I was presenting the material, and they kind of went after me. And it was a very negative experience because of all the doxing and, again, the threats and folks contacting people's employers, etc. you were always concerned that what's going to happen next.
So now you're kind of out of the whole scene to a large degree, and you're just kind of moving on with your life. Is you just kind of focusing on, I guess, I don't know, rebuilding your life in a way.
That's right. I just want to go to a new place. I love droning. I love hiking. As far as I'm concerned, I have a second chance because I was cured of hepatitis C last May 22nd, 2018, after 28 years.
Wow.
And I feel like a new man.
Yeah, good.
It's incredible. So, yeah, I want to do something good with the time I'm here on Earth and my kids. I really don't want them to see a bunch of nonsense from me on YouTube. It would be cool if they would see some of my drone videos because I do like photography, and that sprang out of me trying to find Nibiru.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, maybe you'll maybe you'll catch some UFOs on your drone. There's quite a lot of UFO drone videos out there. I
haven't even looked at that. There has to be, yeah.
Yeah. You get these things that go past the drone very, very fast. I call them zip-bys. And I think it's mostly just to do with the relative motion of the drone, because your drone's going through the air at 30 miles an hour and you get something like an insect going by, and everyone thinks it's a UFO. And some of them are quite hard to explain. So look out for those. They're kind of fun. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was a very interesting conversation. I'm sure it'll be very interesting to a lot of other people. So thank you.
You're welcome.